Well, as you can see, most of us started with 4 and worked up from there, you know, and like him, I guess I was always 10, 12 years behind state-of-the-art, but state-of-the-art wasn't what I was concerned with.
Yeah.
I think if there's one word that all of us thought about, was performance.
That's it.
If we could find a good performance, and if we could preserve a good performance, we'd done a job.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
luckily for all of us, we got to work with really great people.
Yeah.
And boy, if you don't think that makes a difference, try it without them.
You know, I've seen great performances go on, you know, like there was a technical glitch or something that made the performance not usable or something like that. You had to really have your act together to get a good balance, to make sure the vocal was impactful, and
Yeah.
to make sure that whatever the
Well,
main supported it.
Yeah, I would guess that if, after the recording was finished, you couldn't tell I was involved, I'd done my job.
Yeah.
I presented the artist, I presented the performance, and,
If you messed up, you would be a scapegoat. You know, you get all
Yeah,
the
well,
blame but none of the credit. You know?
yeah, well, that comes with the territory. I never was anybody worried about what other people thought in
How did
that
you set up
sense.
the band? How did you set up like?
Well, the first room was small, 15 by 17. So once you got past 3 people, you know, you were starting to move people around and think about which microphone to use and where to put this guy and where to put that guy. And
Baffles.
yeah, well, I had one, but it was on wheels, so I could move it around. But to me, that business of being transparent was the goal, and I think most of the artists I recorded would feel that I'd done my job, which was to get out of the way, so to speak. And of course the technology, you know, I mean, I started recording direct to disc, which meant not only you didn't edit, but you didn't do too many takes either, because the guy you were working for was looking at you burning up all those big expensive discs. And so you had to be.
Joe was telling me earlier that they used to record to wax, and if the take didn't work out, they would just shave off the top layer of wax. It was a nice.
Yeah, well, I didn't, I had a Presto 28N, which was 2 Presto disc recorders, and recorded 2 at a time. One was the master and the other the safety, because in the old days, to play a master would ruin it. So I'd play the safety and pray that the master was as good.
Were they both running the same speed?
Everything, yes. Identical. But, you know, I get back to that word performance. We've all been blessed with great players. And boy, it makes your job not just not work, but fun.
Yeah.
And literally, I mean, to spend a lifetime
Were you
running a
excited to
recording
go to work?
studio.
You excited to go to work when you were going to work for Bartholomew or for Smiley
Well,
Boys or something?
no, I recorded when other people wanted. I used to do a lot of Sunday sessions with Dave Bartholomew, because he, for some reason or other, always had something else he wanted to do after we'd done whatever we did during the week. So a lot of times we did Sunday things. And also, I got Cajun bands to come in on Saturdays and Sundays, because they had their jobs, you know, back in wherever in South Louisiana. So they would come on Saturday or a Sunday to record, and they were great. They'd bring hampers of crabs and stuff. It was a fun time.
Beer.
Yeah, well, beer is the mother's milk of recording, I think.
That's right. That's right. For everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know
But-
Mark has a great kitchen in his studio. It seems to be like a big part of it.
Yeah, well,
It's all right.
if you're gonna have guys over a protracted period of time, their comfort, whatever that takes, is crucial, because if they get out of sorts, bye-bye performance, you know? So you want them happy. My thing was to tell jokes. Yeah, so
You
try to keep them happy. Yeah, I still tell jokes, you know. But,
How do you You have to be a storyteller if you're going to
yeah,
a record
yeah,
producer.
and it was fun, literally, and I think one of the really great things in the recording business that I found was, once you got to know the guys in the band, suddenly the music was different. You were understanding what they were trying to do at that point. And that can be a little bit hair-raising sometimes, in that you're not sure you're doing what they need done, you know? For whatever the New Orleans sound or da-da-da-da you want to call it, there was one thing that convinced me that the reason the players were good in New Orleans was a lot of people hired live bands for private functions. And if you were bad this week, you didn't play next week. So they filtered out the bad players by not hiring them over. So what you got and what presented themselves as musicians most of the time in New Orleans were guys who'd proven themselves Saturday by Saturday, you know, and there was no way you could say that he didn't have his chops because he earned them, you know.
When did other studios start popping up in New Orleans?
Oh, they came and they went. I didn't pay attention to them, literally. In the early days, besides me, there was a studio that a couple of people from WWL had put up. They were doing air checks, because back in those days, advertisers wanted to know that their commercial was played all the way through and didn't get, and so air checks was a big business, and that's what they did, literally. So they had the facility and they did some recording, and except for that, until the technology became a little bit more flexible, tape machines and stuff like that. For instance, when I got my first tape machine, a 1/4-inch mono machine, that was a revelation. You could actually cut something out of a piece of tape and put it somewhere else.
351 Ampex?
I had first one was a 200.
Okay.
That was the Ampex as well?
That was
Huge machine. You know, the one I had was, quote, a portable. It came in 3 trunks. It was the most hilarious thing you ever saw when we went on a date somewhere, you know. And but the transport, it was one place, the amplifiers were another, and the power supplies were in another little box. But it worked good. That's the main thing. And the facility.
What
You
year was that?
get caught.
What year was that?
Oh, wow. Let's see. I opened a studio in 45. I started series recordings in 47. This had to be, I'd say, 58, 59. Got a mono tape machine.
You have a Magnicord? You ever have a Magnicord?
No, I had Ampex, but Magnicords were popular.
Yeah.
I had some clients who owned Magnicords, and they went around the countryside recording because it was portable. And,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, that's what I
and-
use. for
Yeah.
Magnicord in the
yeah.
studio.
Yeah, and it was a good machine. And thankfully not quite as bulky. I wasn't a producer in that sense at all. There were maybe 3 artists that I, quote, produced because somebody needed
Yeah.
to get them going, you know, but that was it.
But
Yeah.
at some point you got into the
Well-
record business.
Well, I got into the record business because the record companies were notoriously bad payers. When I started off, a recording contract was a page. 1 page, letter size, not even legal name. And it had very little to say, actually. And now there are 100 pages, and really what they do is they give you the money on page 1 and they take it back in the other 99.
Well, now it's a project. Then they do an album, then they do a video, and then they do a tour.
The work of Little Richard stands in the pantheon, but I especially like, not especially, I like the work that he did with the Upsetters,
Uh-huh.
which hasn't gotten nearly as much recognition. Did he record that in your studio? No.
No. In fact, his whole career was, first he did gospel songs. He was still in Georgia, I guess. And then I think RCA was the label, but I'm not sure. And then he went to Texas, and the guy there brought him to New Orleans. And we put him together with that good backing group, and the rest is, what to say, history, you know. And in fact, what's her name? Art Roop's wife, Lee Roop, I think, was her name.
Yeah.
Got into the record business on the basis of the fact that some people need to be recorded that don't get recorded, kind of feeling, you know? And all of you can look around and say, "Man, there's a group, this is a guy, this is a singer," you know. They ought to record them. The trouble is there's no room. It's a steep pyramid like this, and there's room for a few hit records at the top, and the rest just gets lost in the shuffle. And it's been like that, and I guess it will always be like that, you know, because every day there's a bunch of people out there in the recording studio, and none of them are trying to make B-sides.
Well, one thing that I'd like to know, back when you cut a record, you hope you get it played, the distributors work with you, and you got a hit record. Now, and it may take 3 months to get up number one. Mexican Joe, I think, took 3 months to get up number one. Now, I see on TV, here's an album debuted at number one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not even on sale, and it's already number one.
Yeah.
Now, somebody explain that to me. There's some money changing hands somewhere.
Well, you know, for instance, the title of the Billboard charts kept changing.
Yeah, I know.
You know
Yeah.
what they call it, because when they first started covering black music, you know, they couldn't figure out what to call it. They called it black music for about 3, 4.
Called it race music when I went
Then
in.
they went to race music, and then they cutified it. They called it sepia.
Call it what?
Sepia.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
and things like it. And they've had that problem all along, and we have it till today. Only now the problem is, as he says, on the basis of the orders placed, they'll declare a record number one. Come
It's all
on.
about what ships.
Yeah.
Now, you don't count what ships back.
No, right. No.
It's just 2 weeks later.
Good thing, yeah.
Well, they used to use Tunis One Spot to put their charts on, but they were always about 4 weeks behind, so they were never up to date on their charts.
That's good, probably. So the charts didn't influence the sales, you know?
Well, you know,
Then they had the up-and-coming things, so they'd put a bullet on something coming up, but it was, you know, so far behind.
yeah, and then came that famous phrase, top 40,
Yeah.
you know? When you
Yeah, well,
got to 39, something marvelous happened.
Well, those were the good old days. I'm gonna tell you something, all of that is gone.
Yeah, let me tell you.
Today,
Mom's
you can't get a record
Mom's
played on
Mabley.
any radio
Yeah,
station.
Mom's Mabley's got a thing. It's about the good old days. She says, "Where were they? I was here."
You know, I don't know whether you remember the session that you did for Good Time Jazz with the George Lewis Band in 1950?
Oh, Lord, yeah.
Which I think was just one of the most amazingly well-balanced, trying to capture the power of that rhythm machine. How did you do that with getting it all the presence and everything?
Let me tell you, the magic word in there is George Lewis. It always gets back to performers, you know. And in George Lewis' case, he wouldn't stand for a bad record, you know. He wouldn't jump irate and say, you know, blankety blank, why'd you do that? You know, I beg your pardon, but you know, but the result is the quality is determined by the people who perform when they literally place themselves in charge. And they do by saying what's good, you know, and in his case, what's good was really good.
Yeah, but you must have had a really, somehow, you used that equipment to get that powerhouse sound
Well,
out of thing.
I don't know if I said
It was in
but
his head.
but what I did was listen to the performers and then go in the control room and hope to make it sound like what they did.
Did you have limiters, compressors?
At one time, yeah. In fact, there was a monster limiter with 4 huge output tubes in it. I forget who made it. And it was the latest, greatest thing, you know, and I used that damn thing. And after a while, I got...
Fairchild?
I think it was Fairchild, yeah. And after a few weeks, I realized I was depending on that son of a bitch. You know,
They
and I
still
said,
do.
yeah, but I didn't want to. It's not, not the way you do it, you know? If the dynamics are cockeyed, you fix the dynamics in the performance, not with the damn machine.
You know, I've always said an engineer can't make a hit record, but he can sure run one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be on that side of the glass before you can get it in here.
Amen.
I mean, if it's not in there, I don't care what you do in here, it's not going to hit,
You can't manufacture heartbreak.
No.
I mean, I think some of the
Fix it in
difficult
the mix,
things,
like Cosmo said. That's-
when you get a producer that doesn't hear what you hear, that's impossible. You know, they want to,
You know,
if you can run across that.
I've run across. In fact, in my whole career, I only once fired a producer. I actually put the guy out the studio. I couldn't stand him telling me what was going on when he wasn't hearing what was going on. And finally, I said, "You can leave. We'll do the record. Otherwise, everybody goes." And he left because he knew he was stupid. You know. It's just amazing what some people, and especially today. I mean, everybody's a producer. You mentioned the magic words, record distributor. There was a guy in Nashville. In fact, he was the only Jew that had a country accent I ever met. But they'd send him demos, and he'd call up and he'd mention demo such and such. He says, I'm buying 4,000. I'm paying 3,000. And that's the way the really big distributors did. They controlled the business back then. Between them and back when jukeboxes were important as sales, the jukebox operators forced you to make records 2 minutes and 20 seconds and 2 minutes and 30 seconds. If you were 4 minutes, they wouldn't buy it for the obvious reason. It'd take too long to get back to the next nickel, you know?
Yeah.
And the radio stations didn't want to play them either.
No.
Because
Well-
they could get more records in if they were a minute and a half or.
Also,
2 minutes instead of
after a
3.
while, some of the DJs, the more popular ones, got the feeling like they were producers. You know, how many times you take a record to a guy, DJ, and he'd play it, and before you went on the air, I mean, he'd play it to listen to it, and he'd say, "I'm hearing strings." Yeah. Wait a minute. Wait. This record ought to have strings. It ain't come on the air yet, and he's already. He's
Too long,
he's
too long, a little too
Yeah,
long, too
yeah.
short, it's not
Too
funny
short,
enough.
Too long, yeah.
Not funny enough.
Yeah, I'm hearing strings.
Some romance.